So right now we're gonna discuss about the distance formula and the midpoint for a Cartesian two-dimensional graph. It's actually very easy to remember the distance formula, and I think a lot of people don't understand. Like the easiest way to remember is that there's really a right triangle. I'm going to get into it very shortly. And it says here the distance formula is equal to the square root of y2 minus y1 all squared plus x2 minus x1 all squared. And people usually don't remember that. That's hard to remember. So the way I like to teach the distance formula, how to remember it, is that if you look at the distance between these 2 points, it forms a right triangle in here. That's where it really, right here. Okay, there's a right triangle right here. And that's where the formula comes from because it's a right triangle. It's a Pythagorean theorem, right? It's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And you look at it, that's how it's derived. There's a difference these 2 points, different x points and the y points. You add them up together. So if you do it this way, you'll get the same answer, but I'm going to show you how it works. So let's say this is 5, negative 5 to 4. You plug it in. Okay, let's do using the formula. Okay, plus, what is it? So you have negative 3, oh, I did the x's first. That's okay, negative 3 minus 1. I kind of rearranged x and y's, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's the same thing. Okay, so you get 4 minus negative 5, okay, squared, right? Plus negative 3 minus 1 all squared, okay? And then you get 9 here, 9 squared is 81, right? 9 squared plus negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. And then you're going to get square root of 97. And that's the distance between these 2 points, okay? And that's how generally they teach you, just memorize this formula. But if you look at the triangle right here, this way I like you to remember it, because the thing is they teach you this in Algebra 1, and then when you get to your SATs and everything, you forget the distance formula, and people forget. So the best way to remember the distance formula is that it actually forms a right triangle between the 2 points. So you see one side, the legs, here and over here, and then there's the hypotenuse, if you think about it, okay? So the distance from here to here, you'll see, is 9 if you count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay? So distance is 9 really right here, okay? And then distance from here to here, if you count from the y coordinates, is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4. So it's really the same thing, okay? You 4 squared plus 9 squared, then you take the square root of it because this is c, okay? So that's the way I like you to remember it, instead of just memorizing this formula and not knowing where it comes from. That's really where it comes from. It comes from the right triangles. And then we're going to discuss right now also the midpoint, because it kind of goes hand in hand. The 3 things you should learn how to do graphs in Algebra 1 is slopes, distance formula, and midpoints, the most important concepts. So midpoint's pretty simple. All you do is you just add up the x coordinates and divide it by 2. So let's do this example. You have negative 5 and 4, right? So midpoint is equal to, right, negative 5 plus 4 divided by 2, okay? And then it says y1 plus y2 divided by 2, so it's negative 3 plus 1 divided by 2, okay? And then what you're going to get, negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1, so this negative 1 halves, right? Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1, right? And that's your answer. So this is your midpoint, and this is your distance between the 2 points, negative 5, 1, and 4, negative 3. Please let me know if you have any questions, but I really encourage you to learn the distance formula via means of the right triangle, and not just memorize this equation, because if you memorize this equation for the test right now, yeah, you'll pass right now, but later on you're going to forget it, because no one remembers these equations. If you know where an equation comes from, you're more likely to remember it, right? So think about the right triangle, and it'll come to you. It's pretty simple. Thank you. I got 9 on mixture word. Oh, I got 5.
Okay, today we're gonna do a work problem, they call them. Basically, it requires people working together, and then how much time can they do it together, basically. And there's a certain setup on it, but I'm gonna discuss it a little differently than the way textbooks discuss with you and the way other teachers might teach you, because my teacher didn't teach it to me this way, but my understanding of it was better if I understood it the way I'm gonna explain it to you. Okay, so let's do this one example. Mike can tile a floor in 14 hours, and then together, him and Joe can tile the floors in 9 hours. So they're working together. Mike can, tile the floor by himself for 14 hours. If they do it together, him and Joe, they do it in 9 hours. So how long would it take for Joe if he tiled it alone? So the standard formula is basically 1 over the rate of the person that he's going to take to do something plus 1 over the rate of the other person. And if there's 3 people, you add another one, okay, and so on. I mean, if there's 4 people, then you got 4 of them. But in this example, there's only 2 of them, so we're going to have only 2, okay? And then that's equal to 1 over the total time it will take for them to finish it. And the way I usually remember this, and the way you can do like further more complex problems is that you understand this part is really a time. So basically, Mike's time plus Joe's time is equal to the total time it takes to do something. And if you remember the formula, you ever done distance equals rate times time when you're doing, speeds and driving cars, usually boats, is D equals R rate times time, right? So if you solve for time, it's really equal to V over R, okay, distance over rate. Distance in this kind of example is how much are you building? And usually in work problems, they're always going to give you just tiling a floor. They're not going to tell you, oh, I can tile 1.5 floors. They always say tile the floor, paint the house. They don't talk about, oh, you can paint 3/4 of a house. So, I mean, but the thing is, the further understanding, this is why it's 1, because 1 refers to the whole floor, okay? Over 14, okay, here this example is the rate you're going at. So it's really distance over rate if you really think about it that way. So Mike's time plus Joe's time is equal to total time. Okay. For this example, he's doing the whole floor, so it's gonna be 1. You can do 1 floor, Joe can do 1 floor, and there's the 1 floor to do it together. Okay. So in this problem, it'll be 1/14 because if Mike can do it in 14 hours, plus 1/x because we don't know how long Joe can do it by himself. So we'll let that be x for Joe. And the total time they do it together is 9 hours. Okay. So we're going to get right here 1/14 plus 1/x equals 1/9. Okay. And the way you solve for x here, my little trick is to multiply um, the lowest common denominator, I would say, for all 3 factors here is 14x and 9. So it will be 126x. So if you multiply by 126x on both sides, you can distribute this. And this is the quickest way to do it. There's different ways to do it. You can find the lowest common denominator and just do like fractions. But this is actually the fastest way to do it. 126x divided by 14 is 9x. Okay. And then 126x distributes to 1/x is just 126, right? And then 126x divided by 9 is just 14x. Okay. So what you can do now is you can subtract the 9x on both sides, right? And you'll get 5x equals to 126. Okay. And then just divide by 5 on both sides. Okay. And you'll get 126 over 5. And since, they're talking about how many hours you can do it, I'll put this in the next form. And that is equal to 25 and 1/5 hours. Okay. So Mike can do it in 14 hours. Joe can do it in 25 and 1/5 hours. That's what actually Joe's rate